In a room full of billionaires, cameras, and secrets, one man said nothing, yet shattered everything. Keanu Reeves refused to shake Elon Musk's hand, and the world hasn't stopped talking since. The Gala of the Elite. There are moments in life when the air itself feels different. You walk into a room and you can sense, without seeing, something powerful is about to happen. That's exactly how it felt on the 47th floor of the Helix Tower in downtown San Francisco, the site of the most exclusive gala in Silicon Valley's history. It wasn't just a party. It was the Dot Party. An elite tech summit disguised as a black-tie charity gala. There were no tickets for sale. No press. No live streams. Only a list of names, curated by Elon Musk himself. The guest list was a surreal mix of wealth and influence, venture capitalists who could fund a city with a phone call, Oscar-winning actors, AI pioneers, royal heirs, and even a few world leaders tucked quietly into the corners. And yet, for all the ego and excess, the night would be remembered for a single interaction between two men. One whose name had become synonymous with innovation and ambition, Elon Musk. And another, who had quietly spent decades resisting the very system that praised him, Keanu Reeves. But before that moment came, the energy was already electric. The event was called the Future Circle Gala, hosted in the penthouse sky garden of the Helix Tower. Think, vertical forest meets ultramodern minimalism. Glass walls framed a panoramic view of the Bay Area, stretching all the way to the glittering lights of Napa Valley. Giant drones floated silently overhead, casting ambient lighting across the guests below. They weren't just drones, they were live AI art installations, shifting in shape and color based on guests' emotional states. The dress code was futuristic formal. For most, that meant glowing lapels, self-tying bow ties, and graphene-threaded designer gowns. But not for Keanu Reeves. He walked in wearing what could only be described as understated grace, a matte black suit with no visible label, a single silver ring on his right hand, and worn-in leather boots. Not flashy. Not loud. But somehow more powerful than anything else in the room. He came alone. No assistant. No publicist. No security. Just Keanu. And when the elevator doors opened and he stepped onto the garden floor, the entire room, without being told, took notice. It wasn't just the celebrity factor. This was Keanu Reeves. The man who once gave up most of his salary to fund stunt crews. The man who quietly sat with homeless people in the streets of LA, asking them questions instead of giving them lectures. The man who, despite all of Hollywood's gold-plated machinery, still took the subway. He wasn't supposed to be here. And yet, he was. Character reactions, the room responds. Near the entrance, a Netflix executive whispered to her date, "Wait, is that Keanu? Who invited him?" At the bar, a billionaire crypto investor tapped his glass nervously. Why's he dressed like that? Doesn't he know this is Black Tie Plus? But across the room, another voice, lower and wiser, said, "You don't invite Keanu to impress him. You invite him because he might say something that changes you." Still, not everyone was thrilled. Elon Musk, perched near the circular stage and speaking with AI leaders about Mars colonization, caught sight of Keanu's arrival. His face changed, just for a moment. There was a history there. Not direct conflict. But tension. Public tension. Years earlier, in a rare interview, Keanu had said something that stuck. Technology is impressive. But wisdom still matters more. Some saw it as a casual remark. Musk saw it as a veiled jab. Tonight, he planned to settle that imbalance. The night moved in elegant waves. Robotic arms served dishes that changed temperature based on your blood chemistry. Guests discussed blockchain philosophy, climate crisis algorithms, and how to make neural implants seem fashionable. Meanwhile, Keanu moved through the room like a silent observer. He wasn't networking. He wasn't taking selfies. He was listening. He sat with the catering staff for 10 minutes, thanking them. He held a conversation with a blind pianist hired for ambient music, leaning in close to hear every word. He even paused at the edge of the balcony to simply look at the stars. One guest noticed and said, "Look at that, he's not on his phone. He's just there." It was unsettling to some. Admirable to others. But Elon? Elon was intrigued. Foreshadowing, collision course. Midway through the night, the lights dimmed slightly for a tech presentation titled, Mapping the Soul with AI. It was exactly the kind of high-concept, philosophically flashy demo that Elon loved. As the holograms played and a digital voice narrated the dream of syncing brainwaves to software, Keanu remained still, expressionless. At one point, a scene showed a mother's memory being uploaded to the cloud, with her child watching in tears. The audience applauded. Keanu did not. Instead, he whispered, too quietly for most to hear, "Some things aren't meant to be owned." Someone sitting nearby overheard it and texted it instantly to their partner across the room. He said, "Some things aren't meant to be owned." Talking about memory uploads. Within minutes, the quote had spread through whispers, messages, and eyebrow raises. The calm bomb had been dropped. Elon caught wind of it. And smiled. "This should be interesting," he said. An hour later, the guests were mingling post-presentation. The scent of engineered orchids filled the air, and glasses of synthetic champagne clinked under the dome of starlight. And then it happened. Elon Musk stood up, made his way through a small crowd of futurists and filmmakers, and walked directly toward Keanu. The room didn't go silent, but it paused. Phones weren't allowed, but eyes were everywhere. This was the clash no one had expected, but everyone suddenly needed to see. One man representing brute progress, velocity, and unapologetic disruption. The other, a quiet oracle of humanity, humility, and restraint. Elon extended his hand. "Keanu," he said, smiling. "We finally meet. Man to man. Vision to vision." And in that precise moment, time stood still. The refusal. The moment Elon Musk extended his hand to Keanu Reeves, the air in the room changed. Not subtly. Not quietly. It was as if time hiccuped, just for a second. A silence layered beneath the music, the murmurs, the clinking of crystal glasses. The man of machines and Mars, reaching out to the man of meaning. All eyes turned toward the pair, even those pretending not to watch. The elite guests who had flown in from Zurich, Dubai, and Tokyo. The tech geniuses whose names could shift stock prices. Even the drone cameras, programmed to avoid crowd attention, drifted ever so slightly closer. There they stood, two cultural titans. Elon, dressed in a custom-fitted tuxedo lined with quantum thread LEDs, grinning wide, owning the space. Behind him stood a trio of advisors and an AI ethicist from Stanford. Keanu, in his matte black suit, his hands by his side, eyes calm, expression unreadable. No entourage. Just presence. Musk's hand was still outstretched. 10 seconds passed. Still, Keanu didn't move. He simply looked at Elon. Not with defiance. Not with disgust. Just a deep, unblinking curiosity, like a man studying a painting in a gallery, unsure whether it was brilliant or broken. Someone whispered, "What's he doing?" Another muttered, "He's not shaking it?" And finally, with the room straining under the tension, Keanu spoke. Some hands build. Others burn, without knowing. 7 words. Spoken softly. Like wind moving through old leaves. Elon blinked. He tried to chuckle, his voice slightly higher than usual. Was that meant to be poetic, or? Keanu didn't answer. He didn't look away either. He just slightly tilted his head, as if inviting Musk to think, really think about the meaning. The silence stretched again. Behind Musk, the Stanford ethicist's smile faltered. To the side, an actress famous for her roles in cerebral sci-fi leaned into her tech investor husband and whispered, "This is why I love him." The chef, who had been plating seaweed-cured lamb on glass tiles, stopped mid-motion and watched. Some guests scoffed. Others stood frozen. A few even looked down at their own hands, as if suddenly wondering which category they belonged to, builders or burners. It was no longer about the handshake. It was about the line. Elon reacts. Elon's grin remained, but something behind it cracked. He cleared his throat, lowering his hand slowly, masking it as a stretch. He looked around, trying to reclaim the energy of the moment. "Well, you know," he said, attempting levity, "not every day you get denied a handshake by John Wick himself." A few polite laughs bubbled up, forced and brief. Keanu offered a faint smile, not mocking, not smug. Just patient. "Elon," he said softly, "you don't need my hand. You already hold the future in yours." That line landed heavier than the first. Not because it was rude. It wasn't. It was truthful. And truth, in that room, was rare and radioactive. Guests start whispering. The whispers turned into quiet side conversations. A British robotics expert murmured, "That was heavy." A screenwriter from LA leaned against a white pillar and typed furiously into her notes app, "Keanu refuses Elon handshake, quote him later in something." The AI drones dimmed their lighting, as if responding to the emotional temperature in the room. A soft indigo replaced the gold. Cooler. Still. Keanu and Elon continued standing face to face, though the energy between them had shifted completely. One man still. The other shaken. Then Keanu gave a small bow, not exaggerated, just respectful, and turned. He walked away slowly, disappearing into the edge of the crowd, stopping briefly to thank a bartender on the way. Elon remained where he stood, still smiling, but the light in his eyes had changed. The cameras weren't rolling. There was no crowd to cheer. And despite being the most powerful man in the room, he had just lost the moment. Whispers spread like smoke. 10 minutes after the refusal, the story had already made its way into nearly every conversation at the gala. He said some hands burn, without knowing. That's cold. Is Keanu anti-tech? No. He's just different. It's like he's protecting something. What do you mean? Like soul. Like he's guarding some old idea we've all forgotten. Even the waitstaff were talking about it in the kitchen. One server said, "Yo, Keanu just denied Musk a handshake and dropped philosophy on him like it was a martial arts movie." Another added, "Dude's real. That's all. You can feel it." Backroom reactions. In a private lounge behind the gala space, a few of the event's planners and security were watching the interaction on a silent monitor. "He actually said no." "Who does that?" one muttered. Another responded, "The kind of man who's not here to play games." One young PR consultant, barely out of college, stared at the screen and whispered, "That's gonna be the most talked about 5 seconds of the night." And she was right. Because what Keanu had done wasn't aggressive. It wasn't disrespectful. It was deliberate. In a world of fast moves, he had chosen stillness. In a room of synthetic intelligence, he had chosen human instinct. And in a moment of ego, he had chosen silence. Flashback, why Keanu refused. Hours later, a close friend of Keanu's, who had attended the gala quietly, explained the moment to a journalist in a private message. He said, "Keanu respects Elon's intelligence. But to him, tech without morality is just fire in a toddler's hands. He's not against the future, he just thinks we're sprinting toward it with our eyes closed." That quote wouldn't go public, of course. But it didn't have to. The gesture had already said everything. Outside the tower, the night air. While the gala continued, Keanu stepped out onto the terrace alone. He looked out over the city lights, breathing in the cold air. A younger actor approached him hesitantly. Not for a photo. Not for advice. Just to speak. "Was that real?" the actor asked. Keanu nodded. "As real as it needed to be." "Were you trying to make a point?" "No. Just trying not to lose one." The actor nodded slowly, absorbing the weight of that reply. Then Keanu asked him a question that would stay with the young man for years. "What's something you still do with both hands, that doesn't involve a screen?" The actor thought. And realized, he didn't have an answer. Back inside, Elon regroups. Back inside the gala, Elon had recovered his stage presence. He gave a short speech later that night about unfiltered vision and the courage to disrupt. It was charismatic, clever, and convincing. But something in his delivery felt like armor. He didn't mention Keanu directly. He didn't have to. Everyone already knew. As the gala came to a close and guests filtered out into black cars and glowing self-driving pods, one journalist said aloud, "Tonight's headline was supposed to be about AI and moon bases. But now? It's about a man who said no, and why that mattered more than anything else." Keanu left through a side elevator, not the main one. No press. No fanfare. Just a quiet exit, the same way he came in. But what he left behind was an idea. An echo. A single question rattling in the minds of the most powerful people in the world. Am I building something, or am I burning without knowing? The quiet storm. It started as a whisper. By dawn, it was a storm. No one had filmed it. No one had recorded it. The gala had been strictly off the record. No phones, no media, no leaks. And yet, by 7 a.m. the next morning, something had already reached the public. Not a video. Not even a photo. Just a sentence. A quote. Passed like a sacred rumor through private messages, encrypted group chats, and high-level tech circles. Some hands build. Others burn, without knowing. Keanu Reeves, at the Helix Gala. And below it, for simple words. He didn't shake Musk's. That was it. That was all it took. Within minutes, Twitter lit up with cryptic mentions. Reddit threads with headlines like, "Keanu versus Elon, what really happened at Helix?" The handshake heard around the world, that never happened. Did Keanu just reject the future? And yet, there was no confirmation. No official statement. No footage. Just silence. And the echo of something real. By midday, hashtags were trending. Keanu refused. Builder or burner. The Reeves reckoning. Podcasts scrambled to record emergency episodes. Analysts speculated. Body language experts attempted to reconstruct the moment based on second-hand accounts. One viral post read, "This isn't about Musk. It's about the line we all feel is being crossed." And Keanu drew it in the sand. Another said, "Imagine having enough peace to say no, in a room full of people who can buy your silence." Memes erupted, of course. Keanu photoshopped into famous refusal moments, Rosa Parks, Gandalf's "You shall not pass," and Neo stopping bullets in the Matrix. But beneath the humor, something deeper was growing. The media tries to catch up. Major news outlets didn't know what to do. There was no video, no confirmation. Yet the story had exploded without them. CNN's technology segment asked, did Keanu Reeves just launch a modern-day philosophical movement by saying no? Meanwhile, Wired ran a skeptical headline. No evidence Keanu snubbed Musk, but the internet's already made it real. But even the skeptics couldn't stop the story from evolving. Because in an age of hypersurveillance and attention addiction, the idea of a quiet, unfilmed moment that rippled across the world was intoxicating. Elon responds, kind of. Later that evening, Elon Musk posted on X, formerly Twitter. Interesting night at the Gala. Some people prefer typewriters. All good. It was vague, dismissive, but also defensive. And the replies were brutal. Thousands of users flooded the comments. You just got philosophered. Keanu doesn't need to reply. The silence is louder than this tweet. Some hands clap. Others just type. Musk's defenders rallied too. Tech loyalists declared Reeves irrelevant, accusing him of being anti-progress. But their attempts to shift the narrative couldn't compete with the allure of quiet defiance. Keanu says nothing. Meanwhile, Keanu said nothing. Not a word. Not a comment. Not a like. He didn't need to. Because every hour, more people were talking about him, quoting him, interpreting him. College professors referenced the moment in philosophy lectures. Buddhist monks posted cryptic responses. Artists sketched him in ancient robes, hand extended downward, not in rejection, but in stillness. One tweet said it best. Keanu didn't refuse Elon. He just refused the performance. Private reactions, the elite speak quietly. In the highest circles, where deals are made behind closed doors, the event took on mythic weight. A CEO from Singapore reportedly cancelled a partnership meeting, saying, we need to revisit our ethical model first. Reeves made me rethink everything. An elite investor wrote to a journalist anonymously. And the real shock wasn't that he refused the handshake. It's that we realized how few of us ever would. Even some of Musk's own advisors began questioning the optics. Do we look like the builders or the burners? One asked in a Slack channel that would later be leaked. Cultural shift, a moment becomes a movement. By the end of the week, bookstores reported a surge in orders for books like Meditations by Marcus Aurelius and Letters to a Young Poet. YouTubers made hour-long breakdowns of Keanu's quote, connecting it to Stoicism, Taoism, and cyberpunk ethics. One comment under a viral video summed up the mood. It's not just that Keanu said something deep. It's that he reminded us we still crave depth in the first place. Clothing brands printed shirts with the words, "Some hands build." A protester in New York held a sign, "Refuse the handshake. Reclaim your soul." The phrase had become more than a soundbite. It had become a mirror. Inside Keanu's world. Privately, Keanu was unmoved by the attention. He spent the week riding his motorcycle through Big Sur, stopping only to meditate by the cliffs and read a tattered book of Zen koans. A close friend asked him over the phone, "You know you've started something, right?" Keanu chuckled. "I didn't start anything. I just didn't play along." "You think it'll fade?" "Everything does. That's why we should be careful what we leave behind." His friend paused. "And what do you think you left behind?" Keanu's voice was quiet. A question. Fallout, Musk's empire adjusts. At Tesla HQ, PR team scrambled. Neuralink postponed its product showcase. Musk's next public appearance was unusually reserved. Gone was the bombastic confidence. Instead, he delivered a technical speech devoid of jokes or bravado. Analysts called it the Keanu effect. Stock prices didn't crash, but for the first time in a long time, the cultural narrative had tilted away from Musk and toward restraint. It wasn't a takedown. It was a shift, a recentering. Final sequence, the storm settles. Weeks passed. Other stories took over the headlines. But the seed had been planted. In coffee shops, strangers used the phrase, burning without knowing, to describe consumer culture. In boardrooms, executives started asking deeper questions before pushing the next launch. In schools, philosophy teachers played clips of Keanu interviews, not for the fame, but for the humility. And every once in a while, someone would stop mid-conversation, glance at their phone, and say, "You know what? Let's talk. Really talk." All because, at one gala, one man said no, without anger, without ego, and simply walked away. In a world addicted to noise, a whisper became a revolution. Not through power, not through algorithms, but through one man's refusal to shake a hand. When that hand reached not for connection, but control. Episode complete. Keanu Reeves refuses to shake Elon Musk's hand at a tech gala. Now it's your turn. Would you have shaken the hand, or walked away? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like if you believe silence can speak louder than power. And subscribe for more untold stories from the shadows of Hollywood.